Every Wednesday to talk about whatever you guys want to talk about. Today I'm going to title it Mini Retirements because I think mini retirements are important. Today I'm dragging my butt. I'm tired. I was up finishing the show Squid Game. I had to see what all the hype was about. I wanted to know. I gotta center myself. Wanted to know what all the hype was about, so I binged that and finished the whole series. And then I got woken up super early this morning. We're doing a number of renovations and stuff like that at my place, and so it's a lot. Managing people and a lot of projects still going on. I could use a mini retirement, so I thought I would name today's video Mini Retirements. A mini retirement is, by definition, you deciding to not full on retire, but to take a sabbatical from whatever it is that you're doing. And typically mini retirements are anywhere from 1 month to 1 year. I've seen people do mini retirements in like 3 months on, 3 months off, 3 months working, 3 months wherever, 6 months working, 6 months gone to, Costa Rica, whatever, Thailand. As you can see on an update, guys, I still have the disgusting, whatever you want to call this, little beard thing going on here. Until my stock portfolio comes back, I continue to look like a disgusting hobo. I took a big loss 2 months ago, more than 2 months ago now, 2.5 months ago, and blew up my portfolio. I am so close now. In August, I hit a point where I was almost back to break even. I was like within 100 grand to break even, which is great because I had lost like 1.6 million. And now I'm probably, I have to check the exact liquidation value on the options portfolio only, but we're talking about, I don't know, less than 200 for sure right now. So I'm close. I'm close to being able to shave this bad boy off, but I have to comfortably be back to break even before I'm able to do that. So I do look like a bum right now, and it is getting long and gross. Oh, when you're eating and your mustache hairs go in your mouth, there's literally nothing worse than that. When you can curl them, 2 months is too long. It's getting ridiculous. Like, I can start breeding this stuff. It's getting so gross. Like, please, market, come back to me. I need the stock market and a few of the major plays that I'm invested in to come back. It's just a matter of time. Like, the market tends to rise over time. So it's inevitable. But if you guys have any questions, you can throw them down here. Yeah, happy to answer any questions you guys have. Port City Trading Desk. First, welcome to the stream. Mini retirements, absolutely, Andrew says. I like mini retirements because you don't necessarily need to go as hard for as long. So you could have a situation where, you grind really hard for like 1 year. You do like a couple properties and work full time and do everything like that. And then you reward yourself at the end with, like a 6-month sabbatical to Costa Rica or wherever you want to go, or Thailand or whatever. And so that's a really nice motivator to keep you going, keeping you want to grind. I think the way I did it, which is like the last 10 years, super hardcore. The last 2-3 years I've not been pushing that hard. The reason I push hard is because I've got 3 kids. And so, there's never any sleep, and I just can't help myself but to find things to keep myself busy. And so, I don't know, we have like 7 flips on the go right now. And like, my role in that is minor, but I still have a few rental properties that I want to sell off. Like, there's about 15 of them that we want to get rid of. And just the work to make NOI statements. And, I've done posts on Instagram and Facebook and whatnot. And just responding to the 25 people that reached out, I'm not doing a good job of that. But just that is like a job. Just disposing of my portfolio. On a stock portfolio, you hit sell and you're good. With, a real estate portfolio, you've got to talk to the tenants. You got to give notice before every showing. If there's any problems in the property, you have to fix it first. You have to explain that whole narrative. It takes hours with each investor. And you may have 10 prospective buyers and none of them buy. And at the end of it, you just wasted 40 hours prospectively selling a property. Now multiply that by 10 properties, you got 400 hours just to dispose of a portfolio. Now you could liquidate your portfolio at a 20% discount and it would fly off the shelf. But again, the frugality in me, the efficient one in me, doesn't want to let my portfolio go for more than a 3 to 5% discount. And so that means I have to find the right buyer. And even if I find the right buyer, I have to respond to all of their questions. I have to give them, the leases and the rent roll and the expenses, and even that, like, I don't have that easily available. So I have to create that in documents, which is something I might tackle tonight if I get the motivation to do that. So we'll see. But yeah, it's been what I've been up to the last week, and then obviously living through the chaos of where I'm living now. We're fixing things up. There's a lot of little things that we found that need to be fixed up, and so I've been in hardcore fixing mode, managing a couple crews working here, and so it's there's renovations and planning ahead for that. I'm basically the project manager, so I have to think ahead. Are we gonna have this or that, or where can I order it, and all that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of that going on, and then moving too. Just the nature of like how much stuff we've accumulated with the three kids, and the kids aren't even a good excuse. I have a whole garage full of like renovation stuff and tools. I just need to get rid of a lot of it. So it's just, we've only been a month moved into this place, and so I've been pushing myself. And then my kids brought home something from school, so now I'm running under the weather with like some sort of cold, on top of not getting good sleep, on top of everything I got going on right now. It's just great fun. But I'm rushing at this house to a point where I'm hoping I can reappraise this house for 2.4 million is sort of my goal, which would leave me with a triple burr. That'd be pretty sweet. It's a fantastic property, so I got to work to make sure the property looks that good and will appraise that well. So that's what might have been my focus this last little bit here. Derek, good to see you on. Anthony says, hey Mike, do you think it would take you to be a millionaire if you had to start over? Oh, how long, I think is what you're trying to say. So how long do I think it would take, or that question comes up a lot. People are always curious. It just depends on my mindset at that time. I don't know. I think on one hand, if I focused on flipping and I started with, it depends how much capital I started with. If I started with nothing, then the time to get that first 100 grand is going to take a bit, right? When you have nothing, you have to get the deals and assign them to collect wealth, right? And you got to work full time, so you have an income that you can then finance, right? The deals. So I think using real estate is one of the best ways. Another great way to do it would be, and again, I'm talking about a sure way, like buying crypto is not a guaranteed way to get there, or speculating on penny stocks is not a guaranteed way to get there. That takes an element of luck. But there's a high risk, but again, could be a high return, could be a low return. With real estate, if you buy smart, it's a guaranteed high return. So you're in a situation where if you put in the work, you get the return. And that's what I like most about businesses or real estate. Real estate's like a business, just a super safe one. If you start a plumbing business, it could all go wrong. If your marketing isn't great, good customer flow or bad employees, whatever. If you start a business, you could lose a lot of money. But in real estate, if you're smart about it, it's very hard to lose money. Real estate tends to hold its value very well. Whereas a business, you could invest $100,000 in machinery, and in a year, that machinery is worth half. So there's a lot of risk factors in starting a business. But I think business is the best way to build wealth quickly. Working as an employee is only necessary to the extent that it helps you finance the business operation or the side hustle. So I believe a full-time job is necessary in the beginning. I would go back to full-time work, whether it's consulting, accounting, whatever, some job, ideally an office job. For me, it's an office job, but I could see that narrative for someone wanting to get into the trades and build the connections that way. You make more per hour. The reason I like an office job is because I can moonlight like I used to do at my office job. So on one screen, I could have realtor.ca open. On my lunch break, I could be messaging contractors and tenants and run to the bathroom and do some project management. So you can do that while you're doing your job. Most people will peruse Facebook or whatever on their phone while they're working throughout a normal 8-hour day. They do breaks doing that kind of stuff. My breaks would be the side hustle, right? And so that would just be my play. That would be the way I would build wealth quickly. But it's the starting that's the hardest. It's the first 100,000, the first 250,000 to get your ball rolling. That's the hardest part. And then once you've got a system in place and you started to have some success, you build your network out and you replicate. And when you find your niche, you go hard on that. And that's the way to millionaire. But $1 million doesn't go very far these days. So, with 3 kids, and I'm supporting my mom and my dad right now, and helping support a lot of family right now, and that means I need probably my fire numbers closer to 3 to 5 minimum for me to be able to support everything comfortably where I'd like to be. So if I was starting again, it would probably take me 7 years, I think, to get there. again, I got a lot of luck getting where I am today. Like I'm not afraid to admit that I levered up. I borrowed a lot of money from the banks, low interest rates, bought great cash flowing real estate, undervalue, made, $1 million or two just on like the value without any appreciation. And then things appreciated. And that took, I had multiple 7-figure years just purely on luck. Like I would have made, say, half of what I made had there not been any appreciation, but the appreciation really just threw things into high gear and really catapulted my success. So is it replicatable? Yeah, 100%. But in the time that I did it, you would need the similar market conditions to make it in the same way that I did. So doing it over would be tough. Starting over is not fun. But yeah, I could do it if I had to. Port says, hey Mike, crazy watching in 2018. No property is wrong mindset. Fast forward, still here 7 doors later with 40K looking to buy more, hopefully. Oh, cool. Awesome. That you've come from no properties in 2018 now to 7 doors. That's awesome. Congratulations. Motor 007 says, Mike, talk to me. What are your thoughts on the new mandates introduced by our Prime Minister and the new City Toronto vaccine or terminate policy? Are the banks next? Start and fight or flee? YouTube has actively come out and said that they're going to not only demonetize, which I don't care about the money, but actually remove channels and remove videos first. And then once you have warnings, remove your channel entirely if you speak out against public health. And it's crazy when, your body isn't your choice anymore. And that, a government can decide, hey, you don't have any liberties or freedoms anymore unless you comply to inject yourself with a chemical we've deemed to be safe after 6 months of trials. We may be wrong. Hey, we've got a history of being wrong. Like since the 1940s, every decade, there's been like a dozen situations where the government has, poisoned women with morning sickness stuff that pharma pushed, or, Harvard would accept, money for, there was a study where they blamed heart disease on fat instead of sugar, and the sugar industry paid for that. And like pharma's got a history of just, I don't want to be a conspiracy theorist because I'm not. I'm a rational guy, and I've talked to people on both sides of the argument, and they both have valid data, and there are people on both sides, tens of thousands of people on both sides. This is clearly not a black or white issue. It's a gray issue. I think vaccines are great in general. I'm pro-vaccine. I'm pro, vaccine for anyone who wants to take it. It should not be forced, I think. That's just my opinion. I think that it should be available for anyone who wants it. The data seems to support it's between 40 and 75% effective, which means if you get it, you're not safe. Don't take your mask off and eat indoors. Like a 65-year-old vaccinated individual has a similar probability of death from COVID than someone who is a 20-year-old male unvaccinated. So if you're young and unvaccinated, guess what? Your parents that are 60 and telling you, hey, you're dangerous, you haven't vaccinated, guess what? They're as dangerous as you are. They have a higher chance of dying, even with the vaccine. Their death rates are higher. So you're not completely safe. Does it make things safer? Does it reduce severe reactions to it? Yes. Are there risks with getting vaccinated? Yes. Sweden just pulled the Pfizer or the Moderna vaccine, I believe it is, and Pfizer's as well is in question if you're under 30, because myocarditis, kids were ending up in they were ending up in the hospital. Young, healthy males that were not at risk of COVID at all. Like you get COVID, you're not 20 years old, your probability of dying is like the same as choking on food. More people under 20 die of choking every year than die of COVID. You have a greater risk of putting food into your mouth if you're 20 years old than you do of literally swallowing a vial of COVID viral. Like that's just what it is. They're making mountains out of molehills for the groups that are not at risk. That's just what the data says. Now, those who are at risk, those who are obese, those who have asthma and are old, those are several other risk factors. But as an example, those older individuals are at high risk. It's like a super flu. And it's killing, 0.1%, which is not huge. Like you have a 99.9% probability of living for the average middle-aged, older person, right? And that gets a lot less the younger you are. So anyway, I'm not an expert on this. I've spent hundreds of hours talking to doctors and nurses. Certain hospitals are beyond capacity. But let's not forget, pre-COVID, the hospitals in London and Toronto were at 100% capacity and underfunded. Our public health system already sucked. There were already no beds. A bad flu year in 2017, 2018, there were no beds available. I remember them talking about it on the news. So that's not anything new. For the people who are arguing that the hospital's overloaded, a little bit of extra funding instead of lockdowns, and a little bit of funding towards that instead of, forcing mandates and all these fines and things, I think that funding could have went to COVID treatment centers where we isolated COVID away from the hospitals. And anyone who, they're laying people off who aren't or choosing not to, and that's fine, that's their choice, to not get the jab. Maybe they want to work in a COVID treatment center. Maybe they're interested in that. That could be an option too, right? And we could have treatment centers where we keep it out of the hospitals. More people are dying from not being able to have surgeries that they need because of COVID. Like, there's other latent problems, suicide, drug issues. There's so many other issues right now going on as a result, like a latent effect of this, that one thing's certain, even if you vaccinate the entire population, COVID is here to stay. It's part of our flu season. It's never going away. We are never going back to a normal pre-COVID. You can't get rid of it. That just is what it is. That's a fact we have to accept. Now, the vaccine's good. I think it's great for anyone who wants to take it. If you don't want to take it, if you're in a low at-risk group, like you're like 18-year-old healthy male, there might be a high, I don't have the data in front of me. I can't speak to it. I'm not a virologist or a statistician. I've taken university statistics. I can look at whether, p-value is significant or not, whether we can look at the data and see if it's, unbiased, which it never is. There's always a funder and there's always inherent biases, even in those connecting the studies. But let's just pretend there was, a good, quality study, which there hasn't been. It's been mostly paid for by pharma. But let's just say we had that data and we could look at it. We could make a decision and say, hey, we know for sure there are risks. When you introduce a foreign substance into your body, there are risks. Very low risks. Like probably 1 in 1,000 have an adverse reaction to the vaccine. I don't know what the numbers are. You can look it up. There's something like 20,000 people have had adverse reactions to the jab. So those who pretend there's no risk, there's a risk to taking it. It's very small, but there's a risk. It exists. And for someone who maybe has already had it and has natural immunity, which we know scientifically, you can talk to dozens of virologists, the natural immunity lasts from exposure and recovery from COVID lasts longer than the protection you get from the vaccine. You have to get a booster every 6 months, right, for the rest of your life, basically, to be equivalent to, or you can continue to be exposed to the virus naturally and get natural immunity. Those are two ways you could do it. Both are sufficient. In fact, natural exposure, if you're young and healthy and can recover from it, is actually a preferred, especially if you can stay at home and take a natural course of recovery and not bog down the medical system. Then in theory, if you didn't spread it around anyone, you quarantined and you developed a natural immunity, you'd be good for a year. You could do that every cold and flu season if you wanted to. Anyway, I don't want to go down this rabbit hole, but I will be leaving Canada if things continue down the path they've been continuing on for the last 5 years, but accelerated since COVID has kind of come into play. There's a real inequality that exists right now in a lot of Western societies, a lot of haves and have-nots. And the haves, like myself, I grew up in poverty. I was a have-not, but I've converted from a have-not to a have. I now have, wealth. And I want to protect that, of course. It's important that I continue to grow it for my family's legacy, and I don't want to go back to work. I've worked way harder. I put in my 25-year career in 10 years. My coworkers just work in the 9 to 5, whatever. I've put in their entire life's work. What they're going to do in 35 years, I did it in 11. So is it fair that I should have more? Yeah, of course. I put in triple the work they did. They slept and had a great night's sleep and partied and had good fun. And I worked 2 full-time jobs, 3 full-time jobs at certain points worth of hours. So I was putting in 100 hours a week or more. They were putting in 35. That just is what it is. Now, the problem is when those people who are making 35, we go through a recession, they lose their job, they didn't save for the future, they didn't delay gratification, they spent everything they had on the fanciest, watch and vacation. Then they go and they vote in majority to take from those who do not have. And unfortunately, this mandate, I think, is going to result in not only money printing, which creates inflation, which again, just simply taxes anyone who has assets. Inflation is just a tax on the rich. For the most part, poor don't have assets. So inflation doesn't affect them as much as it does the rich. When the rich, let's say you have a $100,000 house that you own in cash. I used this example 2 weeks ago. And that house, let's say we go through inflation. So everything costs 10% more. That's what we've been through the last 12 months. It's basically a 10% inflation on everything. maybe a bit less. They're calling it like 6%. But let's just, for this example, use 10% because it's easy. House is now worth 110,000. All these, millionaires, whatever, that houses, like, woohoo, my $100,000 house is worth 110,000 now. I just made $10,000. Awesome. No, you haven't. Your $110,000 house, if you sell it tomorrow and get $110,000 in cash, buys you the same amount that it did when you bought the house for 100. So you have no more buying power. You've effectively made nothing. But it doesn't stop there. In fact, your $110,000 house, when you sell it, the government is going to capital gains tax you at 25.5%. In Canada, 26%, depending on which tax bracket you're in, on the capital gains tax, effectively 50% tax-free, 50% tax, that capital gains tax rate. So your $110,000 is really like 104 after closing costs and tax. So the government has now created 10% inflation and taken 5% of your wealth, maybe a little bit less. So call it 2-3% of that wealth. So inflation raises tax revenue for the government. They want inflation. Their goal is to peg it at 2%. That's the CPI goal. They want your money to become worthless at a compounding 2% every year. That's the goal of the Federal Reserve, of the Central Bank of Canada, et cetera, so forth, right? Like, of all these nations, that's what they're targeting. It's an issue when they've now taken that motive and that goal to create a tracking system. They want to track everyone so people can't get away with not paying tax, et cetera, so forth. It's all about control. Trudeau's a big fan of China's social credit system, knowing where you eat at what restaurants and what you do, what you buy, and where you go, and tracking that. They like that. He wants to bring that in, I think, through this mandate infrastructure. It's not even about the mandate. It's really about control, I think. I don't know. It seems that way. And I don't like control. I like a free market. Not entirely free. I grew up with nothing. I understand the importance of a food bank. I understand the importance of a social security system, of basic public health care that's available for everyone. I'm in favor of that. But I'm sort of here, and he's way over here with where he wants to take things. And so I'm just not a fan of that. I probably will leave Canada in the next 5 to 10 years. That's just a fact. I'll be back to Canada 5 months a year, but 7 months a year, my primary residence will not be in Canada. I will not be a resident of Canada. I will be a non-tax resident because I don't want to pay, and I don't want to be part of this society where there's so many restrictions on freedom and so little choice and control. I'll probably end up in maybe Costa Rica, maybe Portugal. There's many great, maybe the Bahamas, who knows? Maybe the Cayman Islands, somewhere where there is freedom. And I love Canada. My family's here. So I will be back to Canada every summer probably for the rest of my life. Who knows? If I can't get on a plane, or Trudeau just came out and said there's no traveling on planes, trains, whatever, if you're unvaccinated. Again, like, nothing wrong with the vaccine. It introduces a small amount of risk. Most people I know who have been vaccinated are fine. I have a friend whose dad just got vaccinated, 6 days later died of a heart issue. So, I mean, there are people, it's being unreported, no one's talking about it, but there are people who get vaccinated and then die. That's strange to me. It could be coincidence. We don't know, right? Like, statistically speaking, people die of heart attacks all the time. People die of, whatever, all the time, brain aneurysms and shit like that. And people die of choking. People just die. It's just part of life. People are dying all the time. But just when it's a COVID death, the world freaks out about it and reports on it. Anyway. Got me a little wound up there, but it's sad. It's really sad to see the way Canada's moving. And I, for one, I've already migrated to my own little estate here where I got some land where if, we go through some supply chain shortages, that I'm prepared. But the next step is to leave Canada. And you know what, I might even get vaccinated. I'm still, I'm not even going to share in here if I'm vaccinated or not. I could have already got the first vaccine. I'm not going to say whether I got the first one or not. I will say this, I didn't get the second one yet. And I don't know if I plan to be honest. I don't know. I think everyone should have their choice, and natural exposure is a choice too. And if you've been exposed naturally, which a lot of people that I know that have been close to me, who I came in contact with, had it, and could I have been exposed? Very possibly. I was this close to someone who had it. Like, we're talking really close for like 2 hours straight indoors, no masks, twice now with someone who had confirmed case. So I've had exposure. That's just a fact. Did I get enough viral load to get super sick? I've had the flu a couple times. I don't know. It's hard to say. Some people say they get it. They don't have a lot of symptoms. I don't know. I quarantined in both cases. But I have a strong immune system. That's just a fact. If I'm worried about it, if you're in an at-risk group, protect yourself. Get it. I think, it's your choice. There's no negative for me saying you get it. Just think about this. All the politicians have nothing to lose. They've already paid, they've already signed contracts for all the vaccines for everyone. If the people don't get the vaccine, then they lose money and they look stupid. So it's in their best interest, even if the vaccine didn't work, to promote the vaccine. And then furthermore, even if it had consequences like it caused, cancer down the line or some genetic issue later on, or, messed you up in some way down the line, most of the time when you expose yourself to like a cigarette or something that's toxic for you, it takes a long time to mess you up, and it's hard to trace it exactly back to that one thing. Like there's lots of carcinogenics, like eating super burnt toast or like having a cigarette. I don't smoke, but like people who do that are exposing themselves to toxins, right? And there's risks with that. But my point being here, it should be a choice for each person. They should decide whether the risk is worth the reward. And I can see why the politicians see no risk. Like if you're gonna get sick 10 years from now and they can't prove that and there's no lawsuits associated with it, they should just give it to everyone. Why? Because you don't spread it as much. There's a lot less spread. And you don't get as sick, so it's not as bad for our medical system. And we have a public healthcare system here in Canada. We don't have a two-tier system. So it's necessary. It is necessary in Canada to push it. I get it. I understand the narrative behind it. And so, I don't know. I personally think it's wrong to force people, but I can see why they're doing it. I can see how their narrative, it makes sense and it benefits other Canadians. It's for the public good. But at what point can your health care be sacrificed for the public good? Like, could the government decide that, hey, we're going to inject you with a little bit of poison. It might mess you up a little bit. It's probably not. 99% chance you'll be fine. But then, hey, there's a risk here. Yeah, I mean, there's exactly, breathing, you drive in your garage, you leave your car on for a minute, you breathe that in, it's carcinogenics. I try to avoid all that shit as much as I can. Some people don't care. And that's cool. That's your choice. No one should be forced into it. That's my belief. But again, what does my opinion matter? I'm not a politician. I have zero control. And I'm in the minority, as it seems. It seems the majority of Canadians support a vaccine mandate. And again, it would make sense. If the majority are already vaccinated, there's nothing for them to lose by voting yes for it. And they actually end up being better off. If you're already vaccinated and the other people around you are vaccinated, you all have a lower chance of contracting. It's just statistically proven. It's not perfect. You still should wear your mask. I mean, the vaccine doesn't make you be able to return back to normal. These people on Facebook going, let's get back to normal. Like, if we all just get vaccinated, we're back to normal. There is no back to normal. You can still die. You're both vaccinated. You go see your grandma. She's 85. She's going to die. Vaccinated or not. It's probably going to kill her at a higher probability than the flu. So even with the vaccine, it's still not gone. So it makes it less severe. It helps reduce things. Just like masks do. It's generally good to social distance. All those things are good things. Like in Japan, that's part of the culture. People wear a mask. If you feel a little bit under the weather, you put on a mask. I want to see more of that in our society. Forget COVID, just in general. It's good hygiene to wash your hands often, to wear a mask if you're not feeling well, to social distance. All good things in general. I'm a germaphobe, so I generally like that stuff. But I don't like forced mandates on people who choose not to. I know someone close to me who has an allergic reaction to many different vaccines. Even as a kid, they were exposed to several of the vaccines, and they've had severe allergic reactions. Just a sensitive person with autoimmune immune issues. They should be exempt. They're not, but they should be exempt. They can't do anything. That's not fair. I could just go get vaccinated, so it doesn't really, that's the line of thought, right? Is like, whatever, as long as I keep getting my booster. I guess once you get the second one, then you need a booster every 6 months. So as long as you keep getting vaccinated every 6 months, forever, then you'd be able to do whatever you want in the government's eyes. But there are people who can't for, whatever medical reasons, or just their choice. Maybe they don't want to put, aluminum and small, fragments of heavy metals in their body. It's not a lot. You could just take some iodine after and it would, come out of you and you'd be fine probably. Vaccines are not bad at all. They have a little bit of bad stuff in it to preserve the virus, but your body's good at getting that stuff out of you. So I don't know. I see both sides of it. I have friends on both sides. I have a good friend who's a doctor and a couple of good friends to talk to who are nurses, and split decisions. Someone who works in the ICU and they're like, I don't want to get it. It's not that severe. I don't want to get the jab. That's their choice. That should be their choice. They may get fired now. I'm against that. I'm about choice. And I think everyone should, if it actually is effective, then you should get it. And if you're in an at-risk group, get it. Okay, next question. If you could invest anywhere in Canada, where would you go? Any undervalued cities? If I could invest anywhere, it'd be in the city that I chose to live in. I would live in the city that I was investing in. There is a strong competitive advantage from living where you invest. You're close to your property. If you need to go check it out, you become ingrained in the local culture. You understand things. You can make a better decision. So I think being in the market you're investing in is smartest. So I would relocate to wherever I was trying to invest in most cases. I have a family of 3 kids, so let's just say that was like Sarnia. It's not Sarnia, but like as an example, 2 years ago, Sarnia used to be really affordable. It's less affordable now, but you could buy a duplex for like 150 grand there, and it would be like a $2,500 a month in rent. And so that was great. It was 1.5% rule. That's a great example of a market. It's less so now, but Sarnia's decent. Even pockets of London. London's such a vast market. There are pockets in East London right now. You can pick up a house. I have one. You can have at $299. Andrew, iodine. Yes, iodine was what I was talking about there. Thank you. Iodine helps you release heavy metals. When I was exposed to lead when we were sanding floors, I took iodine after realizing the dust I was inhaling had lead in it. So that's an example. There are natural things you can do to protect yourself after exposure to things that are bad. Anyway, what was I saying? This was a long time ago, over a decade ago, but just pro tips you learn along the way. Oh, my line of thought, if I switch properties, I don't know, like pick cities that are small, or you could pick rough areas of town too, depending if you're willing to do a really good job screening for good tenants. You can buy properties in bad areas, and if you renovate them nice enough, you can attract a quality tenant even in a bad area. But there are areas in London, in East London, that you can get a detached single-family house for $299,000 right now. I know of opportunities right now. 300 grand, get a house. And then in the west area of the city, you can't find the same house for less than 700. So in the same city, there's such disparity, and the rent is not even that different from one end of the city to the other end of the city. So there are rough areas in London where you can buy houses cheap, super cheap. I got shameless plug. Like one of my investors has one that's being renovated. That's $349,000. Just the basement stuff to finish off. Beautiful lifted house, brand new foundation, all that kind of stuff. In a bad area. So cheap. You can jump in and buy stuff like that. But then there's, I have a 6-plex that's in Byron proper, in West London. Beautiful legal 6-plex, all redone, worth probably 1.3, which I also plan to sell at some point. But just give you an example of the price difference. That brings in like $8,000 a month in rent or $9,000 a month in rent. So it is justified at that price point. But I don't know, just location can make a big difference. I personally like to invest in A+ locations. That's just me personally. But I know a lot of people who invested in the old East Village, which was a shithole. Like McKeever and Kellen, all those guys were investing there when I was saying it was a bad idea. They were right. Houses there doubled and tripled in value, gentrified. And it became from a needle alley, bummy area of east of Adelaide. They, rebranded as Old East Village, and it's become a much better area. So you can pick the areas that are gentrifying, get great deals on properties, pick good ones that you fix up nice, and then be really careful the tenant profile, because a lot of the tenants in the area are terrible, but you can be the one that's gentrifying. So there's lots of opportunity in every segment of every market, wherever you want to look. Remember the like button. Thank you. Next one was, good evening, William. Josh, so yeah, going back to, Josh, my goal is to get back to where I was in June of this year. So I'm hoping to get there by November, midway through November, my birthday. It would be nice. That's my goal. Today was a good green day. Can only hope. A couple of the big stocks that I got sucked into and doubled down on are SAM. Ticker SAM went from $1,300 a share. My cost basis, because I've been wheeling it, it's like maybe $590, but it's down to like $520 right now. It was almost at $499 yesterday. It was brutal. So that's a stock that I think has a lot of upside potential. It's a huge market cap, like a Fortune 1000 company. And then obviously I still have my shares in Newegg. I hedged at the top, and I still have like $370,000 in shares from when I hedged, and I'm slowly just wheeling those away using calls that I sold, but that's going to be a bloody loss no matter how I look at it. Unless I revenge trade it, which I'm trying not to do. I'm trying to avoid trading that. Yeah, it's just gonna take some time. September was a hard month. I was heavy in a lot of good quality companies in August, and the market's taken, like QQQ is down 7%. VTI, the World Index ETF, is down like 5%. We had a rough September, it was like 5% down. And 5% on my portfolio would bring me back. If I was up 5% right now, the 5% that I'm down, I'd be way back to where I was. So I'm not, I think I'm like 97% of the, I'm down like 3.5% from where I was, maybe less. So I'm close to shaving. It's getting closer. It's gross. Like, ugh. It's like pubes in your face. I usually don't have a beard, so it's just gross. And you can't even, I have blonde hair too, so you can't even see it. Like, it's all just a bunch of straggly freaking hairs. A bunch of straggly freaking hairs. Next question. What do you have for reno stuff and tools? I may buy some. Oh, geez, I got everything. I got circular saws, jigsaws, a couple of drills, hammer drills, concrete chippers, so many supplies, like leftover plumbing stuff, leftover electrical stuff, just tons of that crap. And I got garages full at the rental properties too, of just stuff, windows and appliances and just things I've acquired because you need to have them in case, a fridge breaks or something. So part of selling off my properties is selling off all that crap that I acquired in the business. Yeah. Is it okay to execute a ton of partial burrs rather than chase perfect burrs? Yeah, I think that's a sufficiently good strategy, just the same as any other. That's not even a scientific method. YouTube isn't responsible for what is deemed public health. True. I think it's unethical and illegal for the only platform we use to communicate and absorb our news, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, etc. That's how we absorb our news now. It's how I absorb my news anyway. For it to be, one-sided and only supporting one narrative that is the current political party, right? And whoever the, dissenting opinions are shut down. Why would you shut something down? Why not look into it further, right? And the problem is the fact checkers are just liberal socialists or journalists working for large, multimedia owned with conflicting biases. It'd be nice to have an independent review board that considered all information and just said, hey, we're not going to take this piece down because we don't know. As an example, there's no conclusive data on the study of adverse reactions to vaccines. No one's paid to do a metadata analysis yet that I've seen. If you've seen that, send it to me on Instagram, Mike Rosehart. I'd like to see it. On the adverse reactions. There are reports right now of 100,000 cases of adverse reactions. Who's investigating that? Who's studying the negative side effects? Everyone's just focused on public health, and maybe it is good for the public health. But what about the people that are getting singled out? What if you got the jab and you die of a heart attack tomorrow? And it's like, that's okay. One person's going to die to save thousands. No, that's not okay. You don't have a right to force to kill one person to save 1,000. That's not your decision to make. Philosophically, the government shouldn't have the right to choose to kill a few people to save many. I'm sorry. It's just, you can't mandate vaccines in general. Sorry, gets me pissed off. My battery's going to die too. I forgot to plug in my phone, so it's at like 5% here. Sorry, guys. Yeah, there you go. You can quit if they force vaccines at your work. Hey, Mike, it's not if, it's when the next global market crashes. How do you protect your wealth? Do you believe that crypto can be banned by governments as potential threats to currencies? 5%. Phone just said 5% warning, so wrap this up soon. But protecting wealth is about diversifying your assets. So that means not having all your eggs in one basket. I wouldn't have all my wealth in cryptocurrency as an example. I think crypto will have inherent value forever. I don't know on the price or market cap that results out of that. If the US government, the Canadian government got together and just banned crypto like China has done, it would drop the value a little bit. Sure, it would play into it negatively. Would Bitcoin go to zero? No. I think it's important to have diversified asset classes. So I like real estate, but I don't like to be all in real estate. I like cryptocurrency, but maybe 10% of your net worth in cryptocurrency. I like having a diverse collection of stocks, but not just in the US and Canada. I like to own stuff that's from Brazil, Russia, India, China, the emerging markets. I like stuff from Europe, everywhere. You want a little piece of everything, because if one country goes from being a superpower to being bombed or whatever, then you're okay. You must have many streams of income. So spread it around into many different sectors, industries, beyond just one country, most importantly. Spread it around. That's the most important way to preserve wealth, is by evaluating the risk and then picking a diverse class of assets. So it's very, very important not to go all in on one thing. A lot of people do that. They're like, oh, I'm putting 20% of my whole net worth in Bitcoin, another 10% in Ethereum. I'm going like 10% in Tesla, 5% in Apple, and like the rest in real estate. And it's like, okay, that's not a great way to preserve wealth. You're very concentrated in North America. All of your holdings are in North America, except for the crypto stuff, again, which is high risk, but it is, I think, a good part of any portfolio, especially if you're staking that crypto. But just spreading it out as much as you can is a good idea. Have you built a rental house on a lot? No. I've serviced lots and acted as a developer in 3 cases. I've lifted a house and repoured foundation. I've almost rebuilt several houses from the ground up, but no, I've never done a strictly new build except for my own primary residence. I built a house in 2014, 2015 with a basement apartment. I went and lived in it. So that was a different situation, but I was along for the ride. I hired a builder, but I bought a lot of the materials and worked with them to get the cost down. So yeah, that's been my experience. I haven't done a lot of rental builds. Most of my stuff's been fixed up. That's been most of the value. It's hard to make money as a builder, very hard. The profit margins are very small. I don't think I missed any questions, but if I did, I'm sorry. Give me the COVID, someone says. I mean, you have a right to be naturally exposed, and then you'd have natural immunity, in which case none of these mandates should apply. You're actually safer if you can prove with an antibody test or a positive test that you had it. I mean, you're actually safer than someone who's just been vaccinated twice. I'm sorry, that's just fact. Hey Mike, I sold a put on AMD, just wondering, is there a way to realize any unrealized gain even before the expiration date? Yeah, just sell it. You can just close, like if you sold a put, you can go do a buy to close. You basically just buy the same strike and price and date, boom, it'll close it out and you make a profit. It's easy as that. Yeah, or you could just wait for it to expire. There's lots of choices. I often will close contracts out when I get to 60 to 70% realized. When I've sold a call or sold a put, they're both defined gain. So once you've got 70 to 80% of the profit you're going to get, take your gains and go on another contract. That's my thought. Yeah. Hey Mike, I just bought a duplex in Windsor. Do you think it's a good idea to continue purchasing properties during these times or pivoting to something else? I think that the market is going to continue to rise. The Liberal government is going to print money and inflate prices and immigrate people, which create a further supply and demand issue, and prices will continue to skyrocket. London is currently at all-time highs. The real estate market here has never been average sale price higher than it is now. We're higher than the frothy times in February or March now. So I think that will continue. That said, I still want to sell everything off. I don't care if it appreciates another 25%. I will ride the market through REITs. I don't want individual exposure. I don't want tenants that can call me. That's just a personal preference. I'm too rich to be dealing with this bullshit anymore. But for people who are just starting out, who need to grow their wealth, I've got lots of properties. Message me. Yeah. Can't see your hairline. This one or this one? You guys want to see it? There it is. Yeah, I mean, I'm inevitably going to go bald. I stress myself out too much, probably. I have no thoughts on manufactured homes. I don't know anything about them really. Like the Crown Royal homes that get dropped down. I've done a tiny bit of research. Used to make sense, less so now. Depends on what you bought the lot for too. Hey Mike, I did that question already. I think I did all the questions now. Preach it, Mike. Thanks, Carla. Mike, consider joining me on AMC short. I'm finally flat for being down 40K. For 2 days I sold short. It's a long slog, but profits will come. William, I don't really want to short anything right now. I just have no interest after being short squeezed and margin called. Though I believe it's overpriced, I just don't know how long the market can stay rational for. So that is what it is. And I like to rather be long on companies than try to short them. It's just too much. And if you're gonna short, William, make sure when you sell your call, you buy one so you have a defined spread. That's important, where you stop out. Yeah, and New World, I'm gonna try that game out as soon as I get caught up on the rest of life. I wanna check that game out. It's new one by Amazon. I'm bullish on Amazon. I have shares in Amazon. Check the game out. It's a new MMO that came out. It's free to play once you buy the game. So check that one out. All right, everyone, have a good Wednesday night, and we'll see you next week, and on Instagram at Mike Rosehart, where I'm no longer shadow banned. I'm still restricted on my views and stuff, but you can now reach out to me. I think you can even tag me now, which is cool, where I continue to share whatever comes on my mind, and you can make of it what you want. So see you guys all online next week, and of course on Instagram at Mike Rosehart. The secret to unlocking a wealthier you, 3 levers: spend less, earn more, and maximize returns on the difference. You're in control of your financial future. You decide. All right, everyone, have a good night.